Good afternoon. This is Catherine Curran with the Minnesota Center for Systemic Constellations, and it's my great pleasure this afternoon to be interviewing our third set of keynoters, Dan Cohen and Emily Blefeld. And this is for the North American Systemic Constellations Conference, which is happening this March 8th through 12th at the Lumina Resort in Wrightville Beach, North Carolina. And Dan and Emily were my first teachers in constellations. And they set me on an amazing course, more than I even had any idea I was ready for. And I'm humbled to know that we still have a good relationship this many years later. Their work is amazing. You have probably seen at least their descriptions of it or their emails if you haven't experienced it yourself. So we are very honored to have them as the keynoters for our third day. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dan and Emily and ask them to describe first a little bit about their own history in constellations, and then they'll talk about the day that the processes and the day that they're keynoting for the conference. So, my question to you, whoever wants to start out, is describe your history in the constellations field.
Thanks, Catherine. I'll go first. It's really great to be with you and appreciate this opportunity for this interview, but also for the work that you're doing for the conference. It's been a few years since we've had one, and I'm excited to attend and for Emily and I to be able to share and then to meet the community, meet the other presenters who I haven't seen in a while, and so many new folks coming into the world of constellations. For myself, this is something that I was introduced to back in 2000, 25 years ago now, and I was looking for it. I took a year looking for a tool without knowing what it was, only knowing somehow that it existed and that if I looked for it, I would find it. It was a true quest. And my background had been as a peace activist. And when I originally got into that work back in the 80s, I felt that the nexus of peace for myself as a Jewish American was between Jews, Jewish Americans, Germans, and Palestinians. And so I lived in Germany for a time and I was a peace activist there and I led tours of young people and hosted German young people in the United States. And then I went to Israel and arrived there and walked from Haifa, got off a ship in Haifa and walked to Bethlehem and arrived in Bethlehem on Christmas Eve. And then with some friends who I'd met along the way, rented an apartment and lived in Bethlehem for months, basically between Christmas and Easter as a Jewish peace activist. And 15 years after that, the peace process fell apart, and it was clear at the end of the 90s, with the end of the Clinton administration and the failure of the last-ditch effort for peace, that we were really set on a path towards something that I thought would be really horrific, which would be the forced displacement of the Palestinian people from their historic lands. And I sensed that there was nothing in the toolkit that I had that would do anything about that. And that's why I went looking. I was looking for the missing tool in the Peacemaker's Toolkit. And so sitting here today, it's actually Yom Kippur today, ironically. And the worst fears that I and others had for the course of events are being realized as the events in Palestine and especially in Gaza are unfolding. And constellations, which have been my life and my livelihood for these 25 years, I still feel are the missing tool. And I have devoted myself. They're obscure in a sense, and it's an education process for people to grasp, and it is something that moves the soul, not the brain. And so it is a very potent tool, and a powerful tool. And also, I wish that, uh, that the potential for peace had, spread, but at this point it hasn't. And so I just continue to work to the extent that I can, work with individuals and communities to be able to share the potential of constellations and to help release the entanglements of towards violence and conflicts from within people's bodies. So that's me.
Thanks, Dan. It's great to hear the story again of how, in some ways, how I came to Constellations is connected to Dan's story of his work with peace. I was attending a Women Leading Change Against Gender-Based Violence training, and it was for female leaders who, at the time, I was a psychotherapist and founder of a collaborative where we worked with individuals, families, and communities. And I found that some of the most challenging imprints to free and transmute were often the internalized oppression of the feminine, the way that it lived in leaders. Like we want to step in with our creative expression, our artistry, unlock our voices, and share our truths in the world. And if women led in their fullness, communities would change, communities would grow and prosper. I know that the heart would have a deeper connective pulse. And this is in, individuals and families. When a woman feels safe and free and able to share their love and receive love, families transform. And when families transform, communities transform. And when communities transform, nations transform. So I was really looking at, as a therapist and social worker and activist in deeper collective circles and collective movements, at like, how do we transmute and free the heart so that the feminine, not just in female bodies, but the feminine that lives as an inherited current. It's like that watery, fluid, uh, beautiful connective tissue that can travel into the deeper caverns of the heart, can travel across the ley lines of the land and find those crevices and bring light. Water goes into those spaces in rock and brings the most beautiful crystals that we all gather and have on our desktops. And so it's beautiful to be with you, Catherine, sitting here, knowing what you've brought to Minnesota. When I met Catherine, she's just this like force. If you don't know Catherine, get to know her. It's like this priestess incarnate. She's an embodied goddess on every level. And at the same time, we'll talk straight, we'll bring it forward, and we'll center what matters. And so I'm just delighted to be centered in this moment by you and feel honored to be here, knowing what you've been able to create in Minnesota. But that was exactly it. I wanted to work with people like you and help bring your voices forwards, help your soul's blueprint like really
Yeah.
be actualized, and then to be able to step in to the pulse of your vision and bring it rhythm, bring it breath, bring it some fire, and give it the capacity to illuminate the wider collective. And so Dan was a presenter at this course on women leading change against gender-based violence. And he walked in the room at like noon for like an in-service 1 hour lunch presentation. And in 1 hour, he had a room full of leaders who were very like buttoned up women. Like we were all, kind of dressed in our man pants, ready to make it happen, but totally there to dismantle our own internalized oppression. And in an hour, Dan had the room like crying, hugging. People are laying on the floor. I'd never seen a constellation happen, but I thought, what is this? Like, what is happening? And yet, within a week of that process, so many of us in the circle had deep fractals of change. Like it was clearly translated as transformation in our personal lives directly related to what we experienced in that moment. So I thought I have to learn more. And that was the beginning. Dan and I began collaborating as, me and my practice and him and his piecework, and we just started collaborating with my clients. Then we started to begin to do workshops together. I began training in constellations, and it kind of developed from there. For years, we worked together, and it wasn't until our hearts deeply connected and we became life partners that we started to learn how to take not just peace and justice and the transformation of, I guess, the transformation of the change maker, the activist, and the visionary. We kind of took that work to another level where we began looking at alchemy, the alchemy of relationship. Like, how available are we to one another? How can the love between each other actually be the alchemical liquid light that is required in the wider in a wider movement? And so it's humbling when you join. First you're working together, then you're in relationship. It can be a humbling experience to learn how to reopen broken hearts, how to love again after long marriages where we loved deeply, how to let in that quantum transformation, and then from there to teach the somatics of embodiment, of not just, it's not just healing on the outside in the wider
Right.
communities, but like, how do we change on the inside?
That's right. That's right. Wow, what a great recapitulation of your story. And I'm going to pick up on two things you said, Emily. I remember years ago, you said about meeting Dan when he came in the room, you said, "Oh, who's that hot guy?" that that you said that.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you're blushing, but I am.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. When he walked in
and
I
the door
am.
to present,
huh? Yeah, I think it was something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
he
Uh-huh.
he walked in with like socks on, and he's presenting in front of all these like high-powered facilitators. And I thought, this is so interesting. He's just like walking in with his socks on. Now I know that's like a thing in constellation work, but
Oh yeah.
with this
Yeah.
very attractive, animated man who's like the quirkiest character.
Yeah.
You know?
Anyway, so, and then, you started talking about embodied work, and I think that's related to the theme that you guys are going to do at the conference. So, can you talk some about how you see that now? And by the way, I want to say to everybody, we know this is going to evolve and flow among the days. So, we're asking people like 4 months, 5 months in advance. But yeah, how do you see that at this point?
I can share.
Do you want to start this one first, Emily?
Okay. The workshop we're offering is the somatic roots of entanglement and evolutionary journey toward wholeness. And, we're really talking a lot about just the conscious awareness that is remembered in the body, the way the breath catches, the way the shoulders tighten, the way the heart shields, and these, quiet echoes of entanglement. Something that has changed in our work and in the evolution of our work over the last 5 years or so, we've been working together over 10, is that we're beginning to understand that on a cellular level, on a quantum level, we are communicating directly with consciousness beyond, whether that's ancestors or soul council or guides. And when we work in the field, we work as if they are also in the room, that we're working with the bodies in the room and we're working with the unseen, non-ordinary, multidimensional consciousness that's there. But our orientation is that the cells and the biology it's almost like a galaxy. If you think about the cells in your body as mirroring the galaxy beyond, when we can transmute in an embodied way and work with the psychic and multidimensional field of communication that's transmitted through the body, we can expand our capacity to heal both the generations behind us and the generations forward, but by activating those communication systems that are most potent through the cellular form. Dan will talk about the science of this in a moment, but what I would say that's different is we're including sound and the synergy of sound for vibrational healing has a deeper transmission. We teach facilitators a lot around how to orally transmit, how to like hear the messages of the field, communicate from the field beyond, bring it into your cells, awaken that awareness, and then be able to presence healing sentences that are directly delivered through your cells and through the wider communication. And through that oral transmission, in some ways, you're holding the space for letting go of a formula and opening to a field presence that's rooted. And it requires your body to be in rhythm. It requires you to release any of that like drive or that will or that anxiety about having to perform and get it right. Because an amazing workshop, and it's also we're also hoping to support facilitators to go to the next level of their work where they feel they're collaborating with the ancestors that are arriving to support the transmutation. And there's intuition, attunement, sound practices, and body practices to live in a kind of rhythmic, rooted, and embodied way so that you can have the deepest alchemical impact. And Dan, I'll let you talk a little bit about the science of that.
Thanks, Emily. From the beginning in constellations, there's always been this open question of where is the information that the representatives are accessing? Where is it coming from? And there is a standard kind of scientific model, a neurological model, that it's all of that consciousness is in the brains and the bodies of a client, and through some kind of empathic awareness, the representatives are able to pick up very subtle signals in the representation and able to represent basically the inner world of the client. That was never a satisfactory answer for me, because from the beginning I was getting transmissions and representation that weren't even known by the client and could be confirmed afterwards, or other just transmissions in representation that seemed they really were outside the brain. They were outside of anyone's brain.
Mhm.
And so this has been a big open question for me. And it wasn't until the last few years where I made contact with a uh, molecular biologist who's published over 200 scientific papers and written 12 books on this topic. And he wrote me, he said, I can explain to you how what you're doing works. He was aware of my work. And I also took an interest at the same time with a doctor in Hong Kong who was trained both as a PhD in Western psychology and a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine, and also a lineage holder in Taoist alchemy. And between the three of us, even though those two didn't know each other, just through me, I recognized that we can use our bodies literally to be able to travel pathways of consciousness into ancestral consciousness. Um, and that when we do this, when we stand and represent, and this is not just me, this is anyone. I mean, I do it day in and day out, so I'm pretty good at it. But it happens with people just the first time they've ever represented. Um, that we receive input signals from the ancestral field of a client, and often what is inside a person's body is in some way pinging. The entanglement is a living person's body through their epigenetics, that inherited trauma. It is communicating in real time with the ancestral field, and these somatic roots of entanglement are to be able to travel these pathways of consciousness and find the entangled ancestor and do a healing literally at the ancestral level. And that frees the body of the living person to no longer be trapped in the symptom or the pattern or the emotion that has held them for so long that other modalities have not been able to release. And this is what we're going to explore in the time that we have. It's what we do in our practice, and we're going to bring this to the conference and share our work with the participants at the conference.
Well, thank you both. Listening to you, this makes me even more excited about our conference, just to see how things are going to be flowing from day to day, and then what you're going to add, and helping people understand and expand their sense of how this works and how they can not only heal more of themselves, but keep expanding their personal equipment. You
Mm.
know what I mean? To embody more of this and help it go through. This is really, really quite exciting. we're not too far from the end of our interview, and my next question is supposed to be, why is this topic such a passion for you? I mean, I think you've already answered that, but is there anything else you want to say about that?
You want to
Um,
go first, Tim?
yeah, I can. I I I work at times with people who have lost loved ones. I've worked with mothers who have lost sons, and for some, the grief is just so unbearable and persistent. I actually worked recently with an 82-year-old woman who 8 years ago lost a very vibrant daughter in her 40s, a mother herself to two children, lost her to a very painful and terrible cancer. And this grandmother in her 80s since 2017 has not been able to shake the grief. She just lives in it. Day in and day out. And she carries on. She has a good life. She loves her surviving children and grandchildren and her friends. Um, but the grief is persistent and unbearable. And I did a constellation for her, and I represented her daughter who died. And actually, the daughter of the woman who died, so the granddaughter of this woman, was also in the constellation. We did it as a family group, and I represented the woman who had died, and her, I was able to embody her, and I was able to share some information coming through the field, coming through the representation that was clearly not coming from my own role playing or trying to be a good grief therapist or anything like that. It was an embodiment of the consciousness of the woman who passed, and she spoke to her mother and to her daughter. And at the end, the woman said that she felt peace that she hadn't felt in years. And later on, I got an email from one of her granddaughters who was there, uh, not the child of the woman that died, but another granddaughter who had kind of set the whole thing up. And she'd been communicating with her grandmother. And she said the grandmother keeps emailing her over a period of days that the peace that she felt when the constellation ended has stayed with her. And she feels like she thought she would never be free of it. And now she feels in a way she has her daughter back, not in body, but she feels her in her heart and her soul. And I mean, I'm passionate, I mean,
Yeah.
that for me is such a blessing, an expression of love and for myself of doing something meaningful and worthwhile with the life that I have. And I'm doing versions of that every day. That's a kind of a big story. I do little stories, but I'm always, every time I step into the field, there's something miraculous that happens. And of course, it makes me passionate and want to
Great.
share it, teach people how to do it, support, mentor, and hopefully that because imagine how many grandmothers are there who are in similar situations and not having availability to these tools. So I would love to be able to share this work far and wide.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Anything you want to add, Emily? And then I think we'll close after that.
I think for me, I'm excited about our topic around from separation to connection and community and wholeness. That there's a what when a group of constellators come together. I'll say why I'm passionate about this particular project
Yeah,
because
great.
that is I am passionate about so many aspects of systemic healing and alchemy, which I already spoke of. But this particular experience when there are people that walk through the door and say, I'm interested in doing systemic healing, systemic constellations training, systemic inquiry of any sort, they're usually the person who stands in the room and holds the energetic of the truth. Like they look into the spaces of what's been excluded. They read between the lines. They
Yeah,
hear the sounds beneath the sighs and the grudges and they're picking up and sometimes they're scapegoated, and sometimes they're wearing a cape because they're going to rescue the whole family. Whatever it is that got us here, on some level, they're courageous, they're pattern breakers, they're legacy makers. And if one person can come in the room and do the work, I've found constellation work of all the modalities I'm trained in, and there's many. Um, I've found it actually has the deepest impact on the most people. Like one process impacts an entire family. And I, particularly when I was looking in different places to heal and train, I chose social work because I cared about the person in the system. I wanted to not just learn tools of how to shift what's in the mind, but shift the whole community, the family, the nation, the community. And I care about that deeply. It's at the heart of my values. And I would say there's no better event than these larger experiences where you can come together with so many people who are willing to stand for the truth, to include what hasn't been said, to look into the eye of separation and division and call together the ingredients for unity. I mean, if we can do it, it can happen. And so I'm interested in being a part of organizing that movement and supporting change makers who are ready to do this in their own local communities. Like, let's give each other that infusion we need to be able to roll up our sleeves, go home, and make it happen. Because that's what we're here to do: free the heart, awaken the future, open to love.
Right. So nothing big. No.
Nothing big,
Nothing big.
but yeah, that's my macro vision.
That's beautiful. So I just want to say thank you both for spending this time on Yom Kippur and being with us, being with me. And again, if you are interested in this conference, the link to register will be in the first comment below the videos that we put out. And we hope to see you, and I'm sure Dan and Emily hope to see you too, in Wrightsville Beach in North Carolina, March 8th through the 12th, 2026. And thanks for your time today.
It's been great being with you, Catherine. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Catherine.
No, no. I always screw up this part to stop the recording.
At the
Here.
bottom.
I know it's at the bottom. Oh, there we go.